Yeah, it's Mr. Relevant on a Monday, January 22nd, 2024. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. Season's over for the Green Bay Packers. They lose Saturday night in the Divisional Round to the San Francisco 49ers, a final of 24-21. The roller coaster ride of a season comes to a halt, comes to a conclusion in Santa Clara. Lots to get into around this one, as we do for the final time. No guests this Monday, as we will just roll. Alongside producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, I'm Alex Strouf, per usual. Hunter, good to see you, my friend. I'm just going to ask this once. Don't be a jerk today. Don't be rude today. Your Cowboys were on the couch. The Packers were playing football this weekend. Go ahead, 30 seconds or less. Give me your take. Don't be a jerk, though.
Yeah, I mean, food tasted better on Sunday. I was really happy. I can't stand the Packers, so this made me feel really good.
Yeah.
Joe Barry's got to go, though. You can't let Brock Purdy go 5 of 6 on the final game-winning drive and look like a good quarterback when he was average at best all game.
Average at best. I mean, he looked completely rattled, did Brock Purdy, in that NFC divisional game between San Francisco and Green Bay. I didn't think he looked good. He looked good at the end. Christian McCaffrey had his game, but you knew he was going to get his. You knew the 49ers were going to get theirs, right? I mean, they're a really good team. They're the gold standard of what it means to be a good team in the NFC, right? You know, they are exactly what the Packers hope to be in a couple of years, right? Just stacked at skill positions, running back, wide receiver, tight end, stacked defensively. There's no better interior linebacker crew in the NFL than what the 49ers have, and Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, right? And they made some plays. So, yeah, I think you can view it in terms of, you know, the 49ers are the gold standard of what it means to be a consistently good team in the NFC, just like Kansas City is even more than that in the AFC. And the Packers are striving to be that. And unfortunately, in the 2010s and now into the 2020s, the Packers are 0-5 in the postseason against San Francisco. And it's good to get there, especially in a year like 2023 and 2024, when this was a 2-5 football team that legitimately had me questioning whether or not Jordan Love was the dude, and whether or not Matt LaFleur was the dude. I always thought he'd get another year regardless of the result and the outcome of 2023. But there were legitimate questions in October when the team went on a 4-game losing streak. There were legitimate questions even into November. And obviously there remains legitimate questions, you just point out, around Joe Barry and whether or not he should remain the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. We'll talk about that coming up shortly. But first things first is definitely the missed opportunities, right? The missed opportunities for Green Bay on Saturday can all be grouped in together, right? And we'll talk about Anders Carlson and the fact that Anders, missed the field goal. You understand that he was a guy that you worried about all year long, right? So we'll talk about him in a minute. I don't want to start there because I think everybody else has talked a ton about Anders Carlson and that missed field goal. And I'll talk about it, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. But I don't want to start there. I want to talk about every missed opportunity. First half, the Packers, they get 3 trips to the red zone. They leave with 6 points. That's not good enough against the number 1 seed in the NFC. If you want to go on the road to the number 1 team in football in your conference, you have to come away with more than 2 field goals in 3 trips to the red zone. That's a miss, right? Darnell Savage, who had a nice postseason, had the pick 6 against Dallas. He had a nice postseason, but he dropped what would have been a second week in a row with a pick 6. And that's disappointing. And obviously the Anders Carlson kick at the end of the game that was missed is disappointing. But group all those together and things are going to go south really fast. Things, of course, are going to go south fast. And you can walk away from this game feeling 2 ways. Like 2 things can be true. I'm still sad 2 days removed, 2 sleeps in. I'm still sad about the loss, despite the fact that this was a 2-5 team and a team that was a 7 seed, the youngest team in NFL history to win a playoff game. I understand the expectations were not to be a Super Bowl team in 2023. I get that. But I'm still disappointed because this team had the game in their hands in the fourth quarter, right? Kyle Shanahan was 0-30 when down 5 points or more in the fourth quarter. And I know that's kind of not the right stat to use because they kicked the field goal in the first play of the fourth quarter to pull it within 4. But it's still a stat, and it's still one the broadcast featured a lot. 1-30 now because they walk away with that game, with a win from that game. So, yeah, I'm sad. I'm disappointed that the Packers missed an opportunity to go to an NFC Championship game, especially now knowing who they would have played in the NFC Championship game, which was a team they beat, which was a team they have already beaten on the road since the Packers turned things around in the second half of the season. So, yeah, that sucks. But you can also leave that game feeling like the future's really bright, like the future looks terrific. Right, I was talking to Ryan Wollersheim, the producer of Rutledge and Hamilton. He sometimes fills in for Hunter on this show. He pointed out that Adam Schefter, after every team gets eliminated from postseason contention, like last night with Buffalo, Adam Schefter then fires off a tweet outlining the big free agents upcoming for those teams. The one team, really 2 teams, that didn't get those tweets were the Houston Texans and the Green Bay Packers. Because these are young teams that have everybody important pretty much under contract for 2024. The Packers don't have huge free agents, right? Like the big ones are Keyshawn Nixon, who had a huge kick return, then fumbled it, but a huge kick return in the game against San Francisco. John Runyon Jr., your starting right guard, for most of the year. Obviously, there was some rotation there with Sean Ryan. He's a free agent, and he was emotional today when asked about his impending free agency. But that's kind of it. A.J. Dillon, you can draft a running back if you keep Aaron Jones, and I understand he's entering an age 30 season. But you don't have huge holes to fill outside of the holes you already had this year. Safety, linebacker, and, of course, kicker. Anders Carlson misses a 41-yard field goal in the second half, in the fourth quarter of this game against San Francisco. And I just want to revisit what we said all offseason long. This guy was not good in college. He was fine. But he wasn't like an elite college kicker. He missed an extra point every year of his college career, and that's a shorter extra point than it is in the NFL. He missed multiple field goals every year in his college career, which obviously is going to happen. But who missed more kicks than Anders Carlson this year in the NFL? The answer? Nobody. Nobody missed more kicks than Anders Carlson in the NFL this year. And we knew all along, drafting a kicker, A, usually a bad idea. B, seeing what he was able to do in training camp in the preseason, we knew it wasn't good enough. You lived with his misses throughout the regular season and into the postseason. But then in the final game of the season, your most important game of the season, he misses a crucial kick. We knew all along you were going to lose a game because of the rookie kicker. You probably just didn't expect it to be in the divisional round. And that's when it happened. So, yeah, you can get on Anders Carlson. You can get on Rich Bisaccia for standing up for him because he coached his brother and he felt good about it and he had a relationship with him, right? You can make the case for that. But the truth is, you just have to, when hindsight is 20/20, you have to look back and think, okay, what could have this team done better? And that, to me, seems like the number one issue, is that they rolled with a rookie kicker who, in all fairness, like nothing against the dude, I'm sure he's a fine guy. But in all fairness, he wasn't a good kicker in the league this year. He missed more kicks than anybody. When it came down to it at the end of the divisional round, nobody missed more kicks than Anders Carlson. So, yeah, that's concerning. And Matt LaFleur, who spoke with the media today, pointed out that he wants competition in every room, including at kicker. But they never brought in true competition for him in the offseason. And I'm not saying that would have changed anything. I'm not saying they wouldn't have rolled with him because they traded for him, right? Or, they drafted him. So I don't know. I just struggle with I struggle with how it all went down and the fact that we knew before they ever played a meaningful game this year that he would eventually lose them a game. And he did exactly that. I mean, at least he played a role in it, right? Like, I don't want to put 100% of the blame on Anders Carlson because there's plenty of blame to go around. But he certainly deserves some of it. And that was a big, big miss. So we'll see what happens in the offseason. We'll see what they bring in terms of conversation or competition. And we'll see if he's the kicker in 2024. But there was plenty of blame to go around. And some of that blame, for the first time in like 3 months, lands on the quarterback, the guy whose jersey I'm wearing in the Everlight Solar Studio. Some of the blame that we need to give out for this loss falls on the quarterback, Jordan Love. Unfortunately, right? Because he played such a good second half of the season. He did. And I've spent time and time again calling him the dude, calling him the guy, and that I absolutely believe in him as the future franchise quarterback of the Packers, right? Like, I absolutely believe that. But Saturday was certainly not his finest moment. Did he have some plays? Absolutely. Right? Did he have some throws? Absolutely. Did he have some moments where he showed the poise that we've complimented all season long? And did he prove further than he already has that he can shine in the big moments? I think so. But he also showed that he can crack in the big moments. Both of the interceptions he threw, especially the one at the end of the game that sealed it, were really bad. That second one was a horrible throw. Like, it was Brett Favre-esque. And I've compared in the past. I've compared Jordan Love to the previous two quarterbacks of the Green Bay Packers, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. He's got some Rodgers in terms of he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And he's really, really good at surveying the field and making the right choices. But it seemed like Saturday panicked a little bit in the fourth quarter. You know, when he threw that first interception, I think that was in the fourth quarter, maybe end of the third. It only led to 3 for San Francisco. It only pulled them within 4, but it's a turnover that they made into points at midfield. And then the second interception obviously seals your fate at the end of the game, which led to a Packers loss. So Jordan Love was fine, 21 of 34, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for him. It's less yards than you're used to. You wish the completion percentage was just a tad higher, a couple more completions. And there's that throw to Jones that he missed that was bad. But the 2 interceptions were crucial. So as good as I think Jordan Love has been, you know, for the last 3 months, really, Saturday was not his brightest moment. And again, he had moments. He did, absolutely had moments. But I thought it could have been better. So we'll see. And I think he progresses, and I think he gets better, and I think next time he's in that moment, and hopefully that's next year in the divisional round, he proves that he's improved. I think, you know, the report came out after the game that the Green Bay Packers plan to make the Packers plan to make Jordan Love one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And I am all for it. I 100% give that a thumbs up. Because what more do you want from him, right? Like, obviously, if you want to give him $50 million frickin' dollars a year, you want him to win the divisional game. But overall, you're thrilled with how he played, especially down the stretch. You're thrilled with the fact that they wound up in the position they did, which was the divisional round, and you're thrilled with the fact that Green Bay don't miss at that position. Third quarterback in a row, that seems like a hit. And, like, yeah, you got to see more out of him in 24, especially if you give him that big contract like they're expected to. But from what you saw from Pittsburgh on, I think that was November 3rd they played Pittsburgh, to January 20th on Saturday, you're thrilled with what you saw. The product you saw was really good. It was really good quarterback play, maybe the best in the league. So he deserves the contract. It's now just a matter of whether or not he can continue to prove it, which I think he will. So Jordan Love deserves some blame, but also he deserves a ton of credit for the way he helped this team turn it around. And Matt LaFleur deserves some blame. I felt like he went away from the rush again with Aaron Jones and how well he's been playing. And Aaron Jones, again, had a terrific game, but I would have liked to see more involvement from him in the second half of that one. So, yeah, there's plenty of blame to go around. Hunter, am I being unfair on Jordan Love? Do you view me as being unfair on what Jordan Love maybe lacked in Saturday's loss to San Francisco?
No. I do also, I had to remind myself that, yes, he was drafted in 2020.
Fourth year.
Yeah, he's been in the league a while, but it's different when you're in the league and you're on the sideline for NFC Championship games and watching Aaron Rodgers, and then you're the one out there having to actually do it. It's a totally different animal.
Totally.
So I think it's absolutely fair to be frustrated and disappointed by it, but at the same time, it's almost, you just have to remind yourself, he is still really young. I hope for your sake and your mental sanity that this isn't a Tony Romo or Dak Prescott scenario for you, because that's awful. Because I felt the same way.
So hold on. When you say that, you mean that in terms of complete mediocrity, right middle of the pack quarterback? I always one of my favorite podcasts is the Around the NFL podcast, and something they do every year before the season is they decide who the line is. Right, I forget what they used to call it, but it's for a long time it was the Ryan Tannehill line. Recently, it's been the Kirk Cousins line. So it's right middle of the pack quarterback. You're not totally comfortable moving on because the grass ain't always greener. But is he going to win you a Super Bowl? So that's kind of what you mean by Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, I assume.
Yeah, they were both of those guys, and especially Dak. You can win with them, but they're rarely the reason why you win.
Yeah, and they can be the reason you win, but probably not in the postseason.
Yeah.
Right? You need to be at an elite level, right? Look at the 4 quarterbacks remaining in the NFL field. And one of them, I think, is an outlier, but we'll talk about it. In the AFC, obvious, right? Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Those would be your 2 past MVPs, assuming Jackson wins it this year. 2 multiple-time MVPs, then, if Jackson wins it this year. And then in the NFC, a little bit different of a story, but Jared Goff, a guy that has been to a Super Bowl before with the Los Angeles Rams. And then you have the guy that beat the Packers on Saturday, Mr. Irrelevant, shout out, Brock Purdy. And I saw a tweet circulating Saturday night, and Packers fans were probably taking out their frustration and their anger a little bit on social media.
What? No, that never happens.
Oh, Cowboys fans didn't do it last week.
No, not at all. We're classy.
Yeah, exactly. But there was a tweet circulating. I forget who tweeted it. I think it was whoever covers the 49ers for The Athletic. Tweeted, today's a bad day to be a Brock Purdy doubter. Was it, though? Was it a bad day to be a Brock Purdy doubter? Because for 3 quarters of that football game, Brock Purdy was seeing ghosts. Brock Purdy looked shooketh. Brock Purdy looked rattled, right? And the Packers only sacked him once. They were getting pressure on him. But he wasn't playing super well. And look, obviously missing Deebo Samuel for pretty much the entirety of that game is not ideal for San Francisco, similarly to how the Packers were missing Zach Tom for that game. If you posed to me pregame, Hunter, you're going to be without Zach Tom. Packers are going to be without Zach Tom. Niners are going to be without Deebo Samuel. I think I'm probably taking that trade. Now, Josh Nijman did not have his brightest moment filling in for Zach Tom at right tackle, but he didn't play awful. Nick Bosa didn't get to Jordan Love at all. Now, the spin move they kept showing on replay of Nick Bosa beating Josh Nijman after he filled in at right tackle, yeah, not great. But it didn't result in a sack, so whatever, right? So I don't know. I understand Brock Purdy is a fine quarterback, and he wins, right? He's a winner. That's what he's proven as the quarterback of the 49ers. But I still think, and this is not me being a hater on Brock Purdy, I just think that is more a result of the pieces around him than it is of him, right? If you plug Brock Purdy on the Carolina Panthers, I don't think they're a ton better than they were this year. If you plug Brock Purdy in on the Chicago Bears, I don't think they were a lot better than they were this year. If you plug Brock Purdy in on the New York Giants, right? Let's say he's the backup. They end up drafting him last year. Daniel Jones goes down and Brock Purdy's now your starter. I don't think they're a playoff team this year like they were a year ago. So I think Brock Purdy's a fine quarterback. I think he just may now become maybe that line that we just discussed of he's fine, he's good in some moments. He doesn't get flustered often, but I don't know that he is a franchise guy. I view the better quarterback in Saturday's matchup is Jordan Love. I view the worst quarterback, which this is not me being a hater and calling him a bad quarterback. I just view the worst quarterback remaining of the four is Brock Purdy. I think by far number one is Mahomes. Number two, by a mile, is Lamar. Number three, by a mile, is Goff. And then obviously Brock Purdy takes up the rear. So I don't think I view Brock Purdy as great, but he didn't have a great game. He clutched up a little bit in that fourth quarter. You keep rattling off his stat line in the fourth quarter. What was it?
In that game-winning drive, he went 5 for 6.
Okay.
And that was the best he looked. And I mean this as a compliment when I say this about Brock Purdy, because I know people use it as a shot, but he's a system quarterback. And I think that speaks volumes to Shanahan and what he's able to do as a offensive mind of saying, okay, I've got this guy. This is the guy I need to try and win games with. I'm going to design everything I can in my offense to win those games. And he does it. And Brock Purdy fits exactly what they need to do in that offense. And then he has moments because of it where he looks incredible. That's not Brock Purdy's fault. He's playing the best football he can play. But what you're never going to see him do is pull a Patrick Mahomes and move around in the pocket, make an off-balance throw, and just have an absolute piss missile 40 yards down the field and hit Travis Kelce for an awesome first down. Like, that's just not going to happen. So that's where then the line is of, okay, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, they can do those things. Jared Goff is going to outthink a defense and get a guy open because of that. And then Brock Purdy's just going to do his thing and plod along through the offense. And then all of a sudden, you've got incredible players who will make plays for him and win him a game.
I think that's really well said, Hunter. So
Thank you.
I want to do you don't do it often, but when you do, you deserve credit. So I want to do a couple of things, Ed. I want to talk about the future of the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about some of the things Matt LaFleur had to say today as he met with the media. I also want to recap the weekend, right? Like, it's still the NFL playoffs. It's the best time of the year. There was 3 other really good games on TV this weekend that I want to talk about. I also want to look ahead at least a little bit to the championship round. The 4 teams I just mentioned, obviously, the NFC Championship game and AFC Championship game coming up on Sunday. I still want to do all that. But before we do any of that, I want to relive the 2023 season. I want to relive what happened for the Green Bay Packers, because I always use the term, and I used it already today, I always use the term roller coaster, because this was the wackiest season of Green Bay Packers football I remember. I'm 25 years old. The first season I really remember comprehending, I was very young, but it was the Sam Congatto year, 2004. Is like the first season I remember where I was for a lot of games. I remember watching Brett Favre. Like, that's really when I start comprehending it. And, like, obviously I'm a football, like, I love football, dude. I love the Green Bay Packers. I know the history. I've rewatched several of the seasons and the games. This is the wackiest one I remember, and maybe it ever has been, because this is, again, a team that was 2-5. It was a team that had serious doubts at the quarterback position. It was a team with doubts at the head coaching position. It was a team constantly with doubts at defensive coordinator. And somehow that rattled, all balled together into a divisional round appearance in which they probably should have beaten the number 1 seed in the NFC. So as I was sitting up after the Bills-Chiefs game last night, I had my laptop on my lap. I was going through some old clips of the show, and I said, I think I can ball together a season worth of reaction into 2 minutes. Because we launched the show, Mr. Irrelevant. Its first date was the Monday after the season opener against Chicago. The Monday after was the first episode of Mr. Irrelevant. And for those of you that are watching on the video side, audio side, it'll do you justice. But on the video side, I also want you to take a look, and this is where Hunter Vaughn deserves credit, Tiny Hands. The visual evolution of this show over the course of the last 4 months is wild. And it pops out in this montage, in this 2-minute montage. How we went from, like, different sets, different rooms in the studio. Like, the visual evolution of the show is also, like, an underlying interesting part of this montage. So I present to you the first annual Mr. Irrelevant season in review. Here it is. Enjoy.
Through week number 1. Last night was a clear indication of the Packers are not on the level of the Detroit Lions.
But I'm officially in panic mode. He might not be a good quarterback in the NFL. What we've seen through 5 games is clearly not good enough. Bad has become worse. Horrible has become worse. This is a horrible football team. Horrible right now. And I don't know that won't
All right, cut
change.
it. All right. Hunter, I believe in accountability. I'm a firm believer in it.
Not my finest moment.
What the hell happened there?
I'm an idiot.
Okay, that's a good start.
If you head over to ESPN Madison's Twitter, I sent out a tweet with a clip of you earlier in the broadcast.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Way to do your job.
And I needed the YouTube link in order to do that. Not thinking that the stream would keep playing and the site was not muted. So
I thought I had a great setup of that, but I'm going to try again.
okay.
I present to you, without technical issues, the first annual Mr. Irrelevant Packers season in review. Enjoy the roller coaster of my reaction from week 1 until after the Cowboys game last week. Enjoy.
So my week number 1 overreaction is that Jordan Love leads the MVP race through week number 1. Last night was a clear indication of the Packers are not on the level of the Detroit Lions.
But I'm officially in panic mode. He might not be a good quarterback in the NFL. What we've seen through 5 games is clearly not good enough. Bad has become worse. Horrible has become worse. This is a horrible football team. Horrible right now. And I don't know that won't change.
I'm encouraged, but I'm also hesitant when it comes to Jordan Love. He is a really interesting case. Irrational Alex is back, baby. Happy Monday, a winning weekend in the state of Wisconsin.
And yesterday is the first time against the Los Angeles Chargers where I'm understanding the plan of the youth movement, which I was critical of because I like winning.
This team's figured it out. The Brian Gutekunst youth movement plan makes sense now. Everything's coming together. I think they're going to the Super Bowl.
I think the Packers have their guy. I'm ready to say it. I think the Packers have their guy. Wearing number 10, it's Jordan Love.
The entire talk today is strictly the Packers defense and the way they just did not show up at all. At all.
The Packers defense can't stop anybody. But thankfully, they're playing bad defenses. So they're still winning football games.
I just don't feel as confident as others do. And that's not like me, right? Like, I'm the most roller coastery Packers fan ever. He was the most criticized draft pick of the Packers since Tony Mandrich. And here he is lighting the league on fire. And I still have no idea what I watched the Green Bay Packers do yesterday against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm in complete shock and complete awe. I never expected that.
So there you have it. The 2023 Mr. Irrelevant Packers season in review. Now, those of you on the audio side will not see which game was what. So just to run you through it quick, obviously the MVP thing was week 1 after the Bears game. We then skipped to week 4 after the loss to Detroit when I said they're not on the level of them. The next clip was when I said I'm in panic mode. That was after the week 5 loss. I'm blanking on who that was too. Not important regardless. And then we skip ahead to week 8 where I said horrible has become worse and this is a horrible football team. But I'm proud of myself. I did add the asterisk of they might be able to turn it around. I don't know. And obviously they did. And then we skip ahead to week 11, which was the win over the Chargers. And I'm like, yeah, I'm irrational again. And then we skip ahead to week 13. And you hear me outside at one point. That was me outside of Lambeau Field after the Sunday night win over Kansas City, where I said they're going to the Super Bowl, which would have looked really good had they beat the 49ers, by the way. That would have been a really good take by me. It was just an irrational take in the moment, obviously, but it wasn't a bad take at the time. Or, excuse me, at this time. It wouldn't have been had they won on Saturday. And then you could probably piece together the rest. Tampa Bay, when I'm complaining about the defense. Carolina, when I'm complaining about the defense. And then I did throw in one preview. The rest of those were reaction clips, like immediately after the game. I did throw in a Friday take right before the Bears game where I'm like, yeah, I'm not feeling as confident as everybody else. But the fact that I called myself a roller coastery fan, which is clearly evident in that video, I thought that deserved a spot. And then saying Jordan Love's lighting the league on fire, and then me obviously acknowledging the ass kicking that the Packers gave the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round. So there you go. Minus today's takes from the 49ers loss. There is my season in review. Hunter, what was your favorite part of that video?
I mean, it's got to be week one saying that Jordan Love was in the MVP race. Probably the only week of the season that he was actually in it. Actually
in it, right. Because at the end of the year, I imagine he might get some third-place votes.
I think he'll get a couple, but it's so hard with...
Who do you vote for? Top 5? Is that how the ballot works for MVP? I think you vote for top 5.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's similar to the Heisman where it's like the top 5. But, I mean, it's going to be Lamar. Dak is still going to get some votes. You're going to get Christian McCaffrey. I think Patrick Mahomes will still get some. Josh Allen will. So it's just tough because of the other guys in front of him. Next year, he's easily got to be probably third, I think, for betting odds. Because I think it'll go Mahomes, Lamar to follow up, and then Jordan Love.
Ooh, Hunter.
I hate it, but he's really good. This game shouldn't sour people's minds about him, and I don't think it is for Packer fans, which is good. But anyone else that isn't a Packers fan, they should not be looking at that divisional round game as what Jordan Love is as a quarterback.
Yeah, you're right about that. And, I think gives us a natural transition to talking about the future of this team. Because as I said at the top, you could feel two ways about this game, right? And I feel both of them. I feel sad because I thought the Packers were going to win that game, and I thought they had a really good opportunity to win that game, and ultimately they didn't. But I'm also incredibly encouraged about the future because the future is really bright. You got your answer to the biggest question of the season, which was whether or not Jordan Love was the guy, and you got that answer. I think I claimed it after the Chiefs win, Week 13. You got your guy. And he went on to prove that for like 6 weeks after that he's the guy. So you have that answer, which is good, which is encouraging, which is all fine and dandy. You got way more output out of some of the young skill position players than you ever anticipated. Right? Look at the tight end room with Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. Both of them made big contributions in 2023. Look at the wide receiver room. Jaden Reed, hello. Dontavian Wicks, hello. Romeo Doubs becomes kind of, it seems like Jordan Love's security blanket. And this is no pun on the number he wears, 87, but it seems like he's kind of turning into the Jordy Nelson to Aaron Rodgers for Jordan Love, which is great. That's an encouraging sign for a mid-round pick in Romeo Doubs. Christian Watson is an interesting case. When he's on the field, he's solid, right? I thought he had a nice game on Saturday, but he needs to stay on the field. And Matt LaFleur was asked today about the hamstring injury and the continuing hamstring injuries for Watson and, what their plan is going into the offseason. And he said, we have a plan. We feel good about the plan. Flea, which is their main trainer, Brian Engel, he's got a plan for him, which is great. So we'll see if it works. But like you've also got other guys that made an impact in terms of offensive skill positions. I just love talking about him. So I'm going to bring up his name here. Bo freaking Melton, baby. I love that guy. And if he's your 5th or 6th wide receiver going forward, freaking fantastic. Right? Like, I don't expect him to be wide receiver 2. Like maybe he was toward the end of the regular season. But he popped off a couple of games. He had a really nice, end of the season. So if he's wide receiver 5 or 6, awesome. Right, so you feel really good about where that room is. And that was the room I criticized more than any of the last 2 seasons. As Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, wasn't really putting real investment into that outside of last year. Christian Watson was an early-round pick, and this year Jaden Reed was an early-round pick. But Romeo Doubs took a step, and Dontavian Wicks looks like he could be the dude. Like he could evolve into a number 1 receiver in this league. So all of that is super encouraging and exciting for next year. And I also mentioned, like Adam Schefter didn't tweet out a free agent list for the Packers because they don't really have that many big names that aren't under contract next year because of the youth movement. Jordan Love's under contract, and obviously that will get restructured and he'll get paid. But Jaden Reed, rookie contract. Dontavian Wicks, rookie contract. Every receiver and tight end I just named, rookie contract. Defensively, Kenny's under contract. Rashawn's under contract. Jair's under contract. You got to improve at safety. You got to improve at inside linebacker. And you got to figure out what to do at edge rusher, right? So Preston Smith, restructure that contract probably. Rashawn, you probably have to restructure, but like I said, he's under contract. You need a new coordinator defensively, right? Like I think we can all agree on that. Despite the fact that Joe Barry was better down the stretch, right? Week 17 through Saturday, I thought he was better, and his defense had a better game plan. Look, I will phrase this two ways when it comes to the Joe Barry situation. If I'm in control, handshake, appreciate your efforts, take care. However, I'm not in control. I think there's a pretty good chance he's back, which really frustrates me.
What percentage do you think he's back?
Ooh, yeah, good question. I don't want to cop out, but I really feel like it's a coin toss, like it's 50-50. I don't have a strong feeling either way. I think it's more likely he's gone just because the rumor is, and this hasn't been confirmed because there's, and my buddy Andy Herman pointed this out when I was talking to him last night. You know, there's no SPO track for coaches' contracts. So the rumor is his contract's up after this year. We don't know that for a fact, I don't think. I haven't heard Matt LaFleur say that, but that's the assumption we're operating under. So that allows for more of a clean break. But who do you go out and get? I don't know. I don't have a coordinator name in mind. I just know there's a lot out there that's going to be an improvement.
There's a secondary coach down in Dallas who used to wear green and gold, Al Harris.
Yeah, Al Harris is intriguing, and obviously he's deserving of an opportunity. I think he ends up getting a head coaching job, but like a one-year plug-and-play with Mike Vrabel, Matt LaFleur's old friend, could be kind of fun, even if it's a one-year situation. Like, look, this has become an attractive job.
Yeah.
You would agree with that, right? Like, the defensive coordinator position for the Green Bay Packers, despite the fact for 20 years it's been a bad job, which that's probably insincere. The last 10 years has been an unattractive job because Dom Capers was good. That was a good defense the year they won the Super Bowl. I think they were good in 2011 when they went 15-1. But since then, it has not been a good job, and it has not been a good defense. But I think with what you saw this year, knowing the offense is geared up the way it is, I think that defensive coordinator job has just become a hell of a lot more attractive, despite the fails by Joe Barry this year, despite the fact that less than a month ago you allowed the Carolina Panthers, the worst team in the NFL, to put 30 on you. I still think it's an attractive job. So if Mike Vrabel, for some reason, doesn't get a head coaching job, I'm intrigued by that. I think Wink Martindale is an interesting name that's been floated. But that's a clear thing that needs to be upgraded. Aside from some position groups defensively, the coordinator job needs to be improved.
You know, I understand the idea of like, oh, okay, we want Mike Vrabel, and like that'd be awesome. But with how young this team is and all of the draft capital that they've put into this defense, and like you said, a lot of these guys aren't up to be free agents, go get somebody that is kind of more of an up-and-coming, like a position coach guy, because then you can lock them down for years. I mean, Dan Quinn was in a really bad spot as the way he was looked at as a head coach, and as frustrating as he is as a DC, he's been there for 3 years, and this is what he was able to build. If you go get Mike Vrabel, if this defense is at all average or above average, he's a head coach next year.
Yeah.
So you have to go and, I think, try and go and get somebody that's going to be there long term for what this team looks like their goals are going to be for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, I just want to get to some of the comments I see coming in on YouTube and TikTok. I see from Grant, Wink Martindale would be a great replacement for Joe Barry at defensive coordinator. I think that'd be a fun one. Bill on YouTube with a question. Vrabel and Al Harris are really good picks, but does Jim Leonard take the job after turning it down? I still say yes. I don't think he's making the jump to the NFL. Don't get me wrong. That would have me run through a brick wall if Jim Leonard became the defensive coordinator of the Packers, because I trust him, right? Like, obviously, we're in Madison. We cover the Badgers very closely. I got to know Jimmy a little bit just from covering him during his time as the DC and the interim head coach. He's such a football guy. And he knows how to build good defenses. And I think he could do it at the professional level. I just don't think he takes the jump because he turned down the Eagles' job this past year. And you want to talk about attractive defensive coordinator jobs? How about a team that was just in the freaking Super Bowl, right? So that's an attractive job. So I just don't think he makes the jump. But certainly, one I would be interested in if it came down to it. Joseph on YouTube says, love the collections of Alex clips throughout the season. perfectly encapsulates how the roller coaster season and team development went. Well done. And I appreciate that, Joseph, but like, those are real feelings, right? Like, it was fun for me to go back and make that because I remember how high I felt week one after Jordan Love kicked the snot out of the Bears. Like, the ownership just resumed with a new quarterback in his first real start, right? He had that start against Kansas City a few years ago. I don't really count that. In his first real start, in his first start against Chicago, he smoked them. And then you kind of have the fourth quarter collapse against Atlanta that I left out, and you have the week 3 comeback against the Saints that I left out. But then you go through the October stretch, which was just brutal stretch for the Packers. And I thought the season was... I left out a clip there, too, where I said at one point, and Hunter, you'll remember this, which is just so funny because it does encapsulate the season. They were 2-5. They traded Rasul Douglas, and I stayed up till 1 a.m. one night looking at mock drafts. I thought they were going to have the 5th pick. They have the 25th pick in the draft. So, yeah, things changed. But the league comes at you fast, man. And the NFL came fast at the Green Bay Packers this year. It was a really fun season. And it had no shortage of its struggles and its disappointments. But it was a really fun season for the Packers. So, obviously, this includes health to obviously Jordan Love and a lot of the guys around him, which he didn't necessarily have all year. But this should be a team that is looked at as a serious contender going into next season. And I get the Lions are in their division, and they're in the NFC Championship game this year. And that's a team that went from, I think they won 4 games 2 years ago, to now in the NFC Championship game, which is a great story, right? For what is considered a division rival, it's a team I'm rooting for this weekend, the Detroit Lions. I don't think they win, but it's a team I'm rooting for against San Francisco because I'm sick of San Francisco and I'm sick of Kansas City, right? Like, and I shouldn't say I'm sick. I'm more sick of San Francisco than I am Kansas City, despite the fact that Kansas City has won 2 Super Bowls in the last couple of years. The thing with Kansas City is they're just damn fun. And this year it's a different story for them because typically it's been such a high-powered offense for them, which they still have with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but they have a really good defense this year, which just kind of creates a different story for them. So let's look at the weekend. It was a fun weekend in the divisional round. Outside of the result on Saturday that makes me very sad. Very sad. It was a fun weekend. That first game on Saturday got out of hand in the fourth quarter, but it was a fun one. And damn, like the 2 teams that lost on Saturday, future's bright at the quarterback position. I'm talking about the Texans, of course, who lost to the Ravens 34-10. A tough outing for the Texans offense. No scores. Their only touchdown came on a punt return. So, fun story. Baltimore's just really damn good.
Did you hear the quote that Roquan Smith had after the game?
No.
So he was asked about who he would rather play, Buffalo or Kansas City, and he was like, man, I don't care. It could be my little cousin coming into here, and I'm going through him. Love that.
I like that, too. Good for Roquan, too, leaving a bad situation in Chicago, and with what I view as the best chance to win a ring. Although the betting odds do not say that that's the best chance, just given the matchup. I'll talk about that in a second. Game 2, we've talked a ton about Packers-Niners, 24-21, the final in that one. Game 1 yesterday was Lions-Bucks. Fun game. Both games yesterday were really fun. And I'm not saying I'm a genius because I think everybody felt this way, but the slate on Sunday was a little bit more competitive and a little bit more intriguing than the slate on Saturday. Bucks-Lions was fun. Baker, you feel bad for him. I think we all kind of fall into that camp because Baker's a really cool story. To play for 4 teams in 3 years or whatever.
8 head coaches, too.
8 head coaches, right. And to take Tampa to the divisional round and to take, to take over for literally the greatest quarterback of all time. He filled the shoes of Tom Brady. And to get that team back to the divisional round and almost the NFC champ. I mean, they were in that game throughout. It is really impressive. So he was a really fun story this year, but 2 interceptions for him that were crucial and ultimately lost them the game. But I just mentioned, I'm happy for the Lions. They have literally been the lovable losers forever. Forever. They've been the lovable losers. And here they are going to the NFC Championship game for the first time in 30 years. It's a cool story. So I'm happy for Jared Goff, who we talked about it a little bit last week. But he was so overshadowed last week when they played the Rams. That game was all about Matt Stafford returning to Detroit. But Jared Goff was the one blindsided by that trade, by a team he brought to a freaking Super Bowl, by a team that drafted him with the number 1 pick overall. He was completely overshadowed in that Rams game. So I'm happy he won that game. And now he has the opportunity to get back to a Super Bowl with the second team, which would be really cool for Jared Goff. So I'm cheering for the Lions this weekend against the Niners. But that's probably just me being sour, right? I think the Niners are the better team, and I do think they'll win. But I'm rooting for the Lions. The last game last night, I mean, come on. When is it not an instant classic between these two? The Bills and the Chiefs, this time in Buffalo. Always an instant classic when Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen go head-to-head. They played a montage before the game. I don't know how I felt about the montage, but it does hold up a little bit. They compared Allen and Mahomes. Did you see this montage, Hunter? To Manning and Brady?
Yeah, and they talked about this on Unsportsmanlike. Evan Cohen, very against this analogy. Like,
I think I'm with
fired
him.
Up. Yeah, I kind of get it.
I didn't like it. It's just different. And I don't know that Mahomes has graduated that level, right? He's won 2 Super Bowls. He's won several MVPs. Time and time again. I mean, we view him as the best quarterback in football, and rightfully so. But I struggle with the comparison to Brady Manning. Josh Allen's fun. He's a good quarterback. But the thing for Buffalo now is this ain't working. You can't get past Kansas City. And I'm not saying Josh Allen isn't working, but something's not working. You got to fix something. You got to change something. They made the offensive coordinator change midseason, and now Joe Brady, who's their interim OC, is getting head coach interviews because it's a hell of a turnaround offensively for a team that was on the outside looking in at midseason. But I really wanted Buffalo to win last night because Baltimore, what an AFC championship game that is. But Kansas City, Baltimore is going to be a hell of one, too. So,
I think Josh Allen is less Peyton Manning, and I feel like he's more Phillip Rivers.
Ooh.
He's going to be really good, put up a lot of good numbers. Phillip Rivers was really good, put up a lot of good numbers. I don't know if he's ever going to get over the hump, though.
See, I disagree with that, and here's why. Because I think if we're going to make the comparison, Mahomes is Brady.
Obviously.
We'd all agree on that. I would put Josh Allen as Manning. I would agree with that because he's always there, right? And they're always meeting up, and it's usually the championship game, but sometimes the divisional round, just depending on how the cards fall. Joe Burrow is Phil Rivers. Or you could make the case for him as Drew Brees, but that's a different conference for most of his career.
But Joe Burrow got to a Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers never got to the Super Bowl.
So that makes him Drew Brees then? Or does that make him Eli Manning? Because
I think he's more Peyton Manning. It's just people forget about him because he was hurt and just could not stay healthy.
Second time he's been hurt in a 4-year career. So it's probably too early to tell. We know he's a franchise guy if he's healthy. But if we're making the comparisons, I'd probably put him more. And I understand Phil Rivers never made a Super Bowl. I'd just say he's usually the guy on the outside looking in. But you could make the case for Eli Manning because he did beat, I guess, the equivalent to Tom Brady to get to that Super Bowl. So anyway, that sounds like more of an off-season conversation that we just had there. But I like that we went down that path. It happened. So here's your championship games. AFC game is played first, which, by the way, I wish that was backwards. I wish it was the other way around. AFC should be the nightcap. It's the better game, which is the first time ever the Baltimore Ravens are hosting an AFC championship game. I was shocked to learn that. They've never hosted an AFC championship game before.
Wait, even with the Ray Lewis, Trent Dilfer team?
You got it.
Wow.
They were not the 1 seed. And then, obviously, the Flacco 11 touchdown, 0 interception postseason when they won the Super Bowl, Ray Lewis's final year. They were on the road in the AFC championship game, I think, at Denver, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong.
Sounds right.
It may have been the divisional round. But nonetheless, huge game for the Baltimore home crowd. One of my dearest friends in the world, Victor Hensley, who just recently moved to Maryland, is a huge Ravens fan. Why he moved to Maryland, I shouldn't share. I might have, if they make the Super Bowl, I might have him on the show because I refer to him as Cousin Vic. He's who I did podcasts with coming up. We co-hosted a podcast together for 7 years called The Bandwagon, and he is the biggest Ravens fan I know. He started, and again, I probably shouldn't air all this laundry on the street, but it's just funny. I got to tell you the story. So he met a girl, and she lived in the Baltimore area, And he grew up in North Carolina, lived in North Carolina, went to UNC as a Tar Heel. Met this girl. They started dating. Dated for a long time. Ended up moving to Maryland. Her family has season tickets. So
did he marry her for the season tickets?
They're not married yet.
Okay.
At least as far as I'm aware, but I would assume I'd get invited to the wedding. So they are not married as far as I'm aware. But he is dating her and lives with her. And yes, I think the season tickets may play a little bit of a role. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So Baltimore hosting the first ever championship game, hosting Kansas City, the reigning Super Bowl champions. It would be the last two MVPs going head-to-head between, obviously, Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. Like, hello. Fun game. Really intrigued by that one. I think Baltimore wins. Their defense is damn good. Lamar's damn good. I really, really, really want to see Lamar get a win. We got Zach in the chat on TikTok saying, hello from Two Rivers, my birthplace. Hello, Zach. Good to see you, man. And then the NFC Championship game. It's not as fun of a game, but it's a fun game. It's a championship game. Detroit, San Francisco. I'm rooting for Detroit. I think San Francisco wins. And to be real honest with you, I think they win big. I don't know what the line is. I think it's 6.5. San Francisco's favored by 6.5 points, favored by a touchdown, essentially. I think they win, and I think they cover. I just really, really feel like if Green Bay would have won that game on Saturday and they go to Detroit,
they're beating Detroit.
I think they're favored. And yeah, I think they win. Don't get me wrong. But I think they open that game favored. Like, I think it's probably 2.5, maybe even less. Maybe it's 1.5. But I think they go into Detroit as the favorite, which would be crazy, right? Like, we just watched the montage. In Week 8, I was saying this team is horrible. And I think if they would have won on Saturday, they would have been the favorite in the NFC Championship game. So that's why I'm still upset on this Monday, but nonetheless. So as it stands Monday, I'll make my official picks Friday on the show. San Francisco, Baltimore, which has been my prediction all along, I think is the Super Bowl. They're just the two best teams in football. It's a rematch of Christmas Day, the Christmas Day beatdown, which Baltimore picked off Brock Purdy 4 times. So there you go. All right, time now for what Strouf learned. Hunter, I texted you something about 10 o'clock this morning.
But you told me to ignore it, so
yes,
I didn't read it.
I forgot what I sent you, so I need you to read it to me verbatim, minus the word ignore. I believe it's
Chuck at Quick Trip.
Yes, that's it. All right, so I stopped at Quick Trip this morning, up the road from my apartment. And there's a guy named Chuck at the counter, working the counter, and I go to talk to Chuck for a little bit. And I have my yellow sweatshirt on. I was not wearing the Jordan Love jersey this morning, but I had my Packers sweatshirt on, one of my many Packers sweatshirts on. And he goes, "Oh, so you're a big Packers fan?" I go, "Yeah, I grew up in Green Bay. I'm a big Packers fan." He goes, sorry to hear that, but I grew up in D.C. Okay, does that make you a Commanders fan? And he goes, "Yeah, I've been a season ticket holder for 35 years.
What?
Yeah, you live in Madison? Interesting. I didn't get into details on that. And he goes, "Well, I have a lawyer friend out there who I sell them to. He gives them to clients and whatnot." And I go, "Okay, that makes sense." He goes, "What you need to realize, sir," calls me, and he's like, I mean, if he's had season tickets for 35 years, he's obviously a lot older than me. I'm not 35. He says, "What you need to understand, sir, is you have it so damn good."
Yes. Preach, Chuck.
You have it so damn good. And he just starts cussing up a storm. F this, F that, S this. And we start talking about Dan Snyder and how he sold the team finally. And maybe it'll get turned around now for Washington. And, he was reflecting on like the Sonny Jurgensen days. Pat Richter days, friend of the show, Pat Richter, when it was impossible to get a ticket to then Redskins games. And it did put it in perspective for me because I woke up cranky this morning. I woke up, and as I usually do, I have a cup of coffee, and I think about what we're doing on the show today. And I thought I was just going to light up Anders Carlson. I was going to light up the defense. I was going to light up the fact that Joe Barry needs to be gone. And obviously that's not what ended up happening here. I feel good about the future. I'm sad. But what do you do, man? Like, this is a really fun team. It's a really fun season. It was a really good run for the Packers. It raises the expectations for next year. But, baby, that's all I'm used to is expectations. All I'm used to is the expectation to win championships. And for the 1 year we didn't have that expectation, they still got a hell of a lot closer than the Dallas Cowboys. That'll do it for us today. A big thanks to Tiny Hands Hunter Vaughn, as always, for putting up with me and producing the show and doing a great job. New graphics on the video side on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Appreciate all of you tuning in throughout on TikTok and these other platforms. Appreciate all of you on the audio side. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the ESPN Madison YouTube page. Click the bell for notifications. We're live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12:30. We're trying to do it on TikTok now. This is only the second time we've done it on TikTok, but we're going to try to do it on TikTok every Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. We'll be back with guests Wednesday, Friday, recapping the Packers season, previewing the championship weekend ahead. Looking forward to it. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Monday after the Packers season ends. It sucks, but it's also awesome. I'm Alex Strouf. It's Mr. Irrelevant. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Peace.